Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 317 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is pivot. Our quote of the day comes to us from Eric Ries. A pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision. As we head into the holiday season, I personally would like to thank our listeners that have helped support our new book, The Positivity Tribe. Together we can and we will make a positive difference. I had an absolute blast chatting with our guest today. Not only do we have a bunch of friends in common, but we are very much aligned within our beliefs pertaining to personal development. David Nurse absolutely delivers, and then some, when it comes to habits, routines, reading, and pivoting, which is something I think we have all had to do multiple times in 2020. I hope you enjoy today's episode. David, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on. Appreciate the invite.
I appreciate you being here. First question I ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
I love how you start off with that question because yes, I am. And it's how I live my life and how I drive my life. My day actually starts with, after my morning time that I spend with God and make really, really good coffee, is I'll text 3 people or send 3 video messages to somebody that I haven't talked to probably for quite some time, just to encourage them. You know, I might not know what's going on in their life, but it's just like, hey, hope you're doing well, and just giving you an encouraging note and just supporting them. And what I've seen from those responses has been sometimes life-changing. So to answer your question, I'm not ready to positively influence one person. I got 3 that'll influence others and others and others and others.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you expanding on that answer, because most people, it's just very quick, like, all right, let's go. You and I have a friend in common, Steve Weatherford, and in one of his coaching programs, he had Jesse Itzler on, who talks about his same thing. And I forget what he calls it. I think the Power 3 or the 330, where he'll literally text 3 different people each day. And he said sometimes it takes 15 seconds, sometimes it takes a minute or 2, he said, but you never know what that's going to do. And for our listeners, as we kick off this show, I know you're gonna love hearing David what he has to say, but think about what he just said for a second, is starting his day and having a positive impact on somebody. And I think what we've been going through in 2020, there's never a more important time for what it is you do. And the thing that I love about something like that is, even though you might quote unquote impact 3 people, I believe in karma and the compound effect. And the reality is, if you reach out to somebody, whether it's a text message, voicemail, video message, you don't just impact them. You're going to impact potentially 5, 10, 15, 20 other people, because you're going to have a positive impact in their morning or their afternoon. They're going to then positively impact somebody else. So I think that's awesome. And it doesn't just go to those 3. It probably compounds tenfold.
I love that you said that. Let me jump in real quick, is because most people think of that, hey, that's an easy cop-out answer to people that have a lot of influence. Hey, just do one person. But honestly, that's the only way it starts. There's no way you get on a big platform or a big stage and just start influencing. It starts with one person. It starts with those daily processes. And I was actually just listening to a book. I can't even remember what it was, but it was talking about this nurse back in England way back in the day. And she literally focused on just helping one person. She helped Florence Nightingale, who literally changed the whole, like, everything of doctors and nurses as it was. So there's so much power in understanding that just help one person, the compounding effect is the most powerful effect there is.
You know, we probably could go on this conversation for like 45 minutes, but I have to dissect one thing you just said, because I think it's super important, especially in this social media world, is nobody wakes up on a Tuesday morning and says, you know what, I don't have an Instagram account, so I'm going to open one today, and I guarantee you by 3 p.m. today I'm going to have 3 million followers, and I'm going to post videos. Now, you can buy followers, but as far as the actual impact And also, nobody wakes up on a morning and says, I'm going to stand on stage today and there are going to be 10,000 or 15,000 people watching me. It's the little things. And I don't care who you follow or what your genre is. It's one person doing one thing and then it goes to somebody else. And so I'm super, super glad that you touched on that. And now to go into my first real question is for your no quit story. What I mean by that is a time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Yeah, you know what? So that time for me really was when I was playing basketball, and I poured everything I had into playing in the NBA. And I'm from a small town, middle of nowhere, cornfields of Iowa. 6'2", never dunked a basketball in my life. Parents probably should have said, "Hey, play tennis or golf," something like that. But I was so passionate about playing in the NBA that I poured everything I had into it. I literally had no backup plan. It was NBA or bust. And so I grinded my way to be able to play college basketball. And I'm playing overseas in this third division in Spain in the Basque region. And now I'm still thinking I'm going to make the NBA here. And this league is more like a Will Ferrell joke of a league than it is an actual basketball league. And I get cut from this team. So all my hopes, goals, and dreams, everything I poured into my life, no backup plan, was all taken away from me, turned upside down, my face rubbed in the dirt. So literally that was I can quit. I can give up. And I felt bad for myself. I came back. I lived on my parents' recliner chair for 5 months and like literally just licking my wounds. Like, when do I just take a 9-to-5 job? And I had an offer to go get into commercial real estate, which there's money in commercial real estate. It's comfortable. But when I thought about it, I was like, man, I don't get juiced up about going and measuring the sizes of buildings and apartments. It's not for me. I had to follow my passion. And my mom said this quote. She would always say these motivational and inspirational quotes, and usually in one ear, out the other ear. She said, David, when she was doing dishes when she said this, I remember it vividly. She said, David, when one door closes, four open in an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean. And I had to stop in my tracks because I thought it was one door. But what she was saying is one door closes, that playing basketball, something far greater. God's got something far greater for you waiting there if you don't give up, if you don't quit. And that was my mindset pivot that I made was, hey, everything I poured into myself and this film study, this detail, working on my game was actually to help other people, more God-given abilities, a lot taller and athletic, to play in the NBA.
You said mindset and pivot, so it's a perfect segue into your book, Pivot and Go, which I was lucky to receive a copy of, and I read, and we spoke about it before we started the interview. But maybe difficult question, but if you could give the quick synopsis of the book and why our listeners should go ahead and grab a copy.
Yeah, it's about making mindset pivots. So I originally wrote it for people that felt stuck. Like in my situation, I felt stuck right there. And a pivot is a basketball term when the defense is all around you, defending you. You can't see the hoop and everything's just clogged up and you're stuck. You make this small turn, not this big change, just a small pivot, and everything will open up, the hoop, everything. So it's just the same thing in life. Like, change is very daunting. It's hard to make, but little pivots added to pivots, one day, 1% after the next, that compounding effect we're talking about, that's where it all adds up. So this is just, it gives the reader a different way to look at what the world might be saying, like what your success is, what failure actually is, what confidence actually is, just making these small little turns, these mindset pivots. And you know what? It's really interesting that we're having this interview today. And I want to say this because I think the audience will really appreciate this, because it's really real and really true and going on right now. Like, the book has done fairly well. It's done well. Like, I'm proud of what it's done, but I'm also in this stage of, like, I've got these friends who are authors who are selling 500,000 copies, millions of copies. And I'm looking at them and I'm comparing myself to them, and I see what my book sales are doing compared to what theirs are. And it's like, man, is this it? Like, is this what it's going to be? But it's that constant reminder. No, don't quit. No quit. You've got this. You're just building the base. This is leading you, a preparation for an opportunity to come so much better. We have a mutual friend, John Gordon. I remember he told me this when I was coming out with my book, and I was so excited about it. He's like, David, it might do well, but probably not. It's not this book. It's not the next one. Might not be the next one. So just understanding that, like, okay, don't quit. Whatever you're going through, it's going to be difficult. If it's not difficult, you haven't built the foundation. You haven't grown the roots to actually sustain the growth when it comes.
I think that is something that we all need to hear. And it goes back to the idea of Rome wasn't built in one day. And I remember listening to Hal Elrod's podcast about 2 years ago, and he had a guest on it, and I forget who the guest was, but they were talking about overnight success, and the guest laughed, and they said, you're right, Hal. He said, I 100% was an overnight success. He's like, I don't care what people say. He's like, it was just a 10-year overnight success, and you see the success at the end, and you don't realize it's that. But what John said to you about the book, it might be a success, it might not be this book, you don't know. I think the other perspective on that too is how many people have given up and not written their second book or their third book, or not picked up the phone again and again and again. So I'm really, really glad you touched on that. And I'm holding your book in front of me, and one of the things when I received the copy, I think I got it from your publisher or somebody on your team, but the 29-day blueprint to redefine and achieve your success. I'm a huge believer in habits and routines, and we'll get into that in a second, but I got to ask you just to break down the number 29, because it really stood out to me, because typically you hear 14 days, 28 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. But when I saw 29, I was like, all right, there's definitely probably a story behind that.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I use the term 28 days is generally accepted to create a habit. So habits are great, and I love them. I love habits and routines, but I want to make it a lifestyle. I want to make something, when you have that song that you hear on the radio and it's just, you have this rhythm and this groove about you and everything's smooth, like that can be your life by setting up these habits. And 28 days will make your mind create these habits, which in the book I go through day one, step two, very manageable and easy to do. You're implementing these habits, because if you try to implement all 28 at once, it would never work. But it's day by day steps. And on day 29, now it's your choice. Now it's your choice to make it a lifestyle. That's the reason I hate the word diet. Like, diets never work. It might be the 30-day diet, but what do you do after that? Have you set up the foundation? Have you set up these incredible habits that now your life, your subconscious is basically just in this rhythm daily? And that's the goal. When you hit that, like, you feel that. That's the lifestyle rhythm that is just so attractive that we all want.
I love that, and I think that's so spot on. Is those diets or those things? 21 days to this, and just to your point, I always ask the question, I'm like, well, what happens the 22nd day, or what happens the 31st day? And I think so many people, quote unquote, fall off, meaning, okay, I did it for 21 days and now I can take a break, or I did it for this. But I think to your point, if you do it for 28 days and you go ahead and do it that 29th day, it goes from being like a ritual or a habit into something that you do on a day-by-day basis. It becomes who you are. It becomes part of, to use your point, a lifestyle. I think whether it's diet, whether it's finance, you fill in that blank. When you make those lifestyle changes, that's something that is there for your lifetime. So I'm really, really glad you touched on that. And I have to jump into something that we talked about offline is the morning routine. I always ask each guest if they have a morning routine that they swear by, and I think I know your answer, but I definitely would love you to share that with the audience.
Oh, yes. Morning routine. Like, I'm a big believer in winning your morning, you win your day. So I'll walk you through my morning routine. First thing, and I'm big on having tools. That's what this book is about. It gives you actionable tools. It's not just say, hey, do this, do that. Like, it shows you how to do it. So I use exactly everything that I say. I practice what I preach. So when I wake up in the morning, I look at my hands. The first thing I do when I open my eyes is I look at my hands. Now I see the calluses, the grooves, everything that they have been through. I know it's been through a lot of toil. It's going to get through any difficult situation that comes my way today. Now I imagine the most confident person in my life. I envision their hands being my hands. So I know if they did it, hey, so can I. So now I wake up, I'm getting out of bed. I've got my confident hands. Now I'm going to take an ice cold shower. But before I get to that shower, and we'll get to that, there's a mirror right there. And I stop by the mirror because we all wake up with self-doubt. That's the biggest defender that we have. We have 50,000 self-talk thoughts on average per day. 40,000 of those, 80%, are negative. Think about how many negative self-talk thoughts you have floating through your mind throughout the day. So I do a tool that I use. I call it the foggy mirror. So that mirror, it's foggy. It's got the self-doubt. I take these confident hands and I literally, man, I stand there and I'll just like wiping the foggy mirror clean. I'm making the action. Like, you probably heard the power stance, you stand in that power stance and you feel more confident. Do it. Do these actions, and these actions trigger your subconscious that it's okay. You can wipe away that foggy mirror. So I wake up with self-doubt. As much confidence as I'd like to say that I have in myself, I always have self-doubt creep in. So then I go into the shower. I take a 3-minute ice cold shower. Reasons for this is it's good for you. It's the burning brown adipose tissue. We can go into the science of that, but more so for the mind. And I have a thing I call mental dictatorship. It's a chapter in the book. And what this is I went around with a stopwatch for 4 years when I was working out NBA players and training them. And I would hit that stopwatch start when a player didn't seem like they wanted to go through the workout. And I'd see how long it took for them to just be able to overcome that and get through it. In 17 seconds was a time, the average that kept coming up. So what it tells me is, hey, this ice cold shower, I don't want to get in here. This is going to suck. For 17 seconds, it's going to suck. But I know after that, I'm fine. I can get through it. So it gives me that confidence going through my day that, hey, it only takes 17 seconds for my mind to overcome what my body is telling me that I can't do. So after that shower, I go upstairs and I have some praise and worship music going on. So I'm just in this good, steady, not hurried state. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not looking at text messages. If I do, I have things from WhatsApp in Europe, from Japan, from China, emails. Like, I don't want that. That will come. I don't want that right now. So I have my praise music going. I'm making my just amazing Chemex brewed coffee, roast my own beans. I'll sit there and sniff the beans. I just love coffee so much. I'm basically an addict of it. And I'll drink my coffee, 1, 2, maybe 3 cups, while I sit down and I have 5 minutes of just sitting alone in pure silence. Like, I'm not sitting there for hours meditating. And I think anybody that tells you, hey, I meditate for an hour in the morning, 2 hours at night, like, BS. No way. 5 minutes in itself is so hard to sit there by yourself. But this is the time that really clears my mind. And some of the biggest breakthroughs I've had where I believe that's you open yourself up for God to be able to speak to you during those times of quiet. And then I spend about 15, 20 minutes in some type of devotional, if I'm doing a Bible study with one of my friends, and something that I'm just getting God on my mind, on my plate first through the day, chug that coffee and go back for another cup. And then I'll go do a workout. And I love getting my workouts done in the morning, not just for my body and just having it done, but also for my mind. It just gets me going, gets me fired on all cylinders. So yeah, that's basically the morning routine. And then I absolutely love the mornings, but what sets me up for those mornings that we can get into is the evening routine. And this is something that gets really overlooked, man. You hear these books, and you talked about Hal Elrod and the Morning Miracle, and I love that book. It's great, but the evening routine sets you up for the morning. So I have a strategic evening routine as well. Like, I wind down before bed. I have a thing that I call the Big Three. That's where at the end of each day, I'm going over the 3 things that I had made as my most importance for that day, my 3 things. And if I get them done, I'm checking them off. If not, I'm putting them to the next day. And I'm a big believer too on that. Hey, you have a full plate mentality when you wake up, meaning full plate is whatever I get done today, that's what I get done today. I don't have to worry or stress about it. So I check my Big 3, and then I'll write the Big 3 for the next day. So when I go after this morning routine, I'm able to go right into what my mission is for that day. And then before I go to bed, I'll always write out anything that's on my mind. Like, that's the biggest thing that can just deter people from having a great night's sleep is a racing mind. We all feel it. So I'll write all these thoughts out, put it on a piece of paper, and I know, hey, that can be there in the morning, that can be there tomorrow, but I'm not going to go to sleep with it. So I detach myself from that. And me and my wife will spend time, we'll talk, or we'll watch a good lighthearted comedy, something to put us in a good frame of mind. It's also very important you go to bed in a great frame of mind. We never, ever allow ourselves to go to bed mad at each other, ever. And yeah, so that's my evening routine, which kickstarts me into the morning routine. All this being said, it has become a lifestyle rhythm, and it's just built into me. I could do it literally if I wasn't even thinking about it.
You know, I knew that you were going to answer the first part with the morning routine, and I knew you were going to go back to the evening routine, which is why I was excited about your answer. But to your point, not just Hal Elrod, there's been so many books that have been written in the last couple of years, and I think I've probably had almost every author of a morning type book routine. And to your point, so many of them I feel miss the target a little bit when it comes to the evening routine. And I don't want to in any way act like I'm the expert in the field and they're doing it wrong, because they're clearly not, and they're successful and they've done all these studies and things. But I think the best way to improve or make your morning routine even better is to master that evening routine. And one thing that I know for a fact is so many people, the last 15, 20, 30, maybe 2 or 3 hours of their night is with their phone in front of them, going through social media, comparing themselves. Well, David's doing this and I'm not doing that, or watching some negative reality TV show, or unfortunately, the last couple months watching this debacle of an election we have in our country. And it doesn't mean that your next day is going to be horrible, but I truly believe, and I see it myself, when you then go right to bed, the next morning, it's almost like you're off a little bit. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I think it's so powerful in so many ways.
Yeah, great point. Just real quick, like I'm a big time optimization nut, so I track all these types of things, and it's really actually shown to increase your HRV, which is heart rate variability. Your true teller of if you get a restorative, regenerative night's sleep is if you go to bed in a positive state of mind. Also, if you know that people in your family are okay. So not watching these bingy Netflix shows that are horrible, or scrolling through Instagram and feeling terrible about yourself, but put yourself in a positive frame of mind when you go to bed. You will get better sleep, and that momentum continues to build on the next. Nothing like waking up when you got full on energy, man.
No, and from being a basketball guy too, it's small wins lead to huge victories, and I think having one really good evening routine is not going to set you up for the next 4 months, but you have one turns into two, turns into a week, and all of a sudden, just like you said about that 29th day, it's a lifestyle change, and it's not about being perfect. So I want to also touch on that too for our listeners. I used to have this fixation of perfection, where it's like, all right, I got to have 31 out of 31 perfect days of the month, and of course you want to have closer to 31 than 0. But if you have an off day or an off night, it's okay. I can't go back to last night. How do I control this moving forward? So I'm really glad you touch on that. In your book, you wrote something that I think is fascinating in regards to your basketball post-playing career. Getting into what you do now is you cold called and wrote 30 handwritten notes and 30 cold calls to every single GM. You got to touch on that for a second, because I think it's such an awesome, awesome story.
Yeah, that's so when I made my decision that I was going to pivot from playing to coaching, like I was all excited about it. Then I thought, like, you know what? I don't have any connections in the NBA at this moment. So I was going to have to make it happen myself. And I realized just writing an email would be too easy. Everybody's going to do that. So I was going to cold call, write an email, and a handwritten letter, but not asking for anything. I was not saying, hey, I'd love a job. I'm going to work hard. Yeah, so is everybody else out there. But I just wrote something that was like, hey, you know what? I studied their franchise and saw something that was unique about them, and just ended with, if there's any way that I can serve you at any point, just more than happy, let me know. And so I wrote that letter, and I called and left a message to everyone saying the same thing as well. One guy got back to me. I was 1 for 30. It was the then GM of the Clippers, Gary Sachs. And basically the conversation was, you know what? If you're ever out in LA, we'll grab coffee. More of him saying good luck with the rest of your life. So I booked a ticket right after that to LA for the next week. And I prepared and I studied for that meeting. So I had talking points with him. And me and Gary hit it off. We hit it off to the point that when I decided to make that move out to LA after coaching with the Nets, and that's a long story to get to that. So this is way down the road. And me and Gary continued to develop this relationship as I lived with Gary for a while. He was one of the people with me on my side in the wedding. He became one of my best friends. And every NBA connection that I have got has developed through Gary. So it's just the power in absolutely serving and giving, but going the extra mile. One of my favorite quotes is, there is no traffic jam on the extra mile, but who's willing to go there? So that right there is what led me into realizing that just making these genuine relationships, that's what life is about. Not only is it fun to do, that's the only way you're going to be able to achieve your success. One is too small of a number. We need others around us. And I created what I call my golden 15, meaning I have 15 people in my network. And I use that term network with quotes, because I think it's a dirty term, which most people think, I'll hit you up on LinkedIn and let's network. No, I'm going to pour into these people, pour into Gary. I met Mark Cuban. I gave him shooting lessons. It's a story in the book. It's a crazy story how it happened. Didn't know it was him. Gave him shooting lessons. We became friends. I poured into him, pouring into different people that I know that, hey, I would love these guys in my corner. I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to give to them, and then they give it back. So you give without expecting anything in return, and then everything comes back to you.
I could not agree more. At the end of every episode, I kind of have a little very short wrap up. And one of the things I often say is do one thing for somebody else with zero expectations in return. And I think people can more often than not identify when somebody is doing something genuinely for them as opposed to doing something quote unquote for them, but with something else, a given, or like, all right, I'm gonna have David on my podcast because he's gonna introduce me to this person and that person. So I'm gonna be nice to him today, and then I'm gonna be like, so like open up your phone and give me everybody else, as opposed to really trying to genuinely have that connection. And I think that's fascinating. So speaking of connection, I know you know the quote by Jim Rohn, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If I could magically put you around a table with any 5 people, dead or alive, and you can level up with them, who would you pick?
Done. I love this question, man. So number 1 would be Jesus. No doubt about that. Number 1 is Jesus. Number 2, I'm bringing my wife. She's got to come. She is literally my rock. She's my everything. She's way, way cooler than I am. So I got those 2. The next would be, I'm going Tony Robbins. I think he's built an amazing empire of motivation. So I'm striving to be the next Tony Robbins, but with a mix of, I'm bringing in John Maxwell. He's the leadership. He's got the Jesus Center with him. So I'm taking the Tony Robbins. I'm learning from him, mixing it with John Maxwell, and mixing it with Tim Grover, who was Jordan and Kobe's trainer, did mindset work with him. So I'm going to bring him in as well. So I'm mixing those 3 together with my rocks of Jesus and my wife. And then on the outside, who's coming in hard, he's going to serve us the food, is John Gordon, who's my mentor and who's been amazing for me in the process of writing books and speaking. So he's actually at the core of it. So I extended the 5 and went to 6. And I don't think John can really cook that well, but he's an amazing person.
No, but you said serve food, so he'll just carry it in.
There it is. Nice. Yes, he's a servant mentality. Exactly.
So I love that, and I love that question because it literally can go different angles. You could do all past family members you don't know. You could do, just religious or spiritual. But you touched on a quite of an interesting connection. And for those listeners who know who Tim Grover is, Tim Grover was, as you said, I think most known for being Jordan's trainer, but one of the most intense guys. So I would actually like to be the assistant server to John just to see how Tim Grover and Jesus got along. I'm curious if Tim could get Jesus to do a couple like body squats or push-ups or something like that.
Jesus was jacked, man. He carried that cross all over the place. He was already jacked. Hey, and you're the host. You set that question up, so you're already there regardless.
That'd be a fascinating dinner. So we're going to switch over to what I call our hot seat questions. And the only request we have of you is you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool.
Last meal. You can pick absolutely anything. What do you pick?
Last meal. This is great, man, because I asked this question to a lot of people. I call it the death row meal. So I'm going Kobe beef Japanese steak. I go to Japan a lot for work, and I love the Kobe beef from Kobe, Japan, and Japanese sweet potatoes from the grocery store. Sounds kind of odd, but if you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're amazing. So I'm just going to load in and keep eating those, and I'm going out on my own terms. I know you said last meal, but I'm going to eat myself out so
nice.
no one can tell me when to go out. I go out on my own terms.
You know that's what Kobe Bryant was named after?
Yeah, Kobe beef. Yeah, because his dad was over there. He was playing and coaching, I think, over there.
All right. Favorite smell?
Favorite smell? The smell of coffee. Easy answer right there. Coffee beans in the morning.
All right. Basketball doesn't count. What is your second favorite sport?
To play, tennis. No doubt to play is tennis. To watch, basketball. Even though it doesn't count. No, we'll go tennis.
All right.
Playing
tennis.
right after this with John Gordon, which is ironic.
You better beat him. All-time favorite team?
All-time favorite basketball team, the Utah Jazz. John Stockton, Karl Malone, short shorts, old school. Yeah.
Jerry Sloan. All-time favorite movie?
All-time favorite movie is Inception. I love the idea of Inception, of how you can create your dreams on dreams on dreams. That's a really hard question. I'm sure people tell you, like, I can't pick one. So the other one is Happy Gilmore.
Laugh at Happy Gilmore. Go see. Do you have an all-time favorite author?
Yeah, I'm a little biased, but I'm going John Gordon. He's my all-time favorite. I also really love Jack Canfield. John Maxwell. So all-time favorite, John would win with close second and third with those guys.
What is the favorite app you have on your phone?
Favorite app? Ooh, man, that's a good question. You know what? I actually like the one I use the most. We're not counting any social media or anything like that. Is called MyFitnessPal. It's a really easy way to track what you're eating and just to know how to take care of your body. Really,
It's a life changer. What is the background picture on your phone?
me and my wife. It's the day that I proposed to her, where we had one of my friends who she didn't know was there taking pictures of us and videoing the whole time. So it's a picture of that.
Do you have an all-time favorite book?
Yeah, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I've read it like 10 times. Actually, honestly, full frontal, I don't really read books. I listen to them on audiobook at 1.5 speed. So I've listened to it a bunch of times.
I'm not a big audiobook guy, but there are actually quite a few books that I have listened to at actually two times speed, just because they're read slower, and all of a sudden it's like you look at it when you start, it's like 6 hours, and then you go to 2.5 and it's like, oh, 2 hours and 20 minutes. You're like, all right, I can do this. Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
All-time favorite quote? I would have to say, I mean, I got so many of them. I have them written all throughout my house. I got them posted up on different places. But my favorite at the core is, today could be the best day you have ever lived. And I don't know who wrote that quote. I don't know if anybody wrote that quote, but I have it on a little piece of paper by my bedstand when I wake up in the morning. So I know that, hey, today could literally be the best day I've ever lived. I'm going to live in that type of mindset.
I love that. Interesting question. The times we're in of 2020 being just such a difficult year in many ways. I wanted to ask if there are maybe one or two people that you follow on social media that you'd like to recommend for our listeners to check out because they put out positive and uplifting stuff.
Well, yeah, I'm continuing to hit the hammer home here with John Gordon. His stuff is very positive and it's real and it's digestible. So I would definitely say him. Ed Milet's really good. Ed Milet's a good friend and he's great. I'll keep going. Peter Crone is one of the smartest human beings. Very good friend of mine and just amazing mindset, positivity. And then if you're looking in the health field, Max Lugavere, big time. Max Lugavere, the best guy with health there is. I got to throw one more because another friend of mine who's awesome is Cam Matheson. He's a host of the Hallmark Home and Family Show, but he just puts out amazing positive quotes. So Cam Matheson would be that.
That's awesome. I asked for one or two. We got 5 listeners.
I couldn't. I had to keep giving more. I follow them and I read all they put out.
So wanted to just have you share with us the best way for our listeners to connect with you, follow you, but also what's the best way for them to get your book? And is there anything else you'd like to make sure that they check out as well?
Yeah, for sure. So on social media, David Nurse NBA, more on Instagram, also Twitter. And I will get back to you if you reach out to me. It might take me a little while, but I make it a point to get back to everybody. My website, davidnurse.com, my podcast, the Pivot and Go podcast. The book is anywhere books are found, Amazon, anywhere, Pivot and Go. I have a Be the Breakthrough course coming out, which is not like a course, but it's more of a full immersive. We go through it together. Like I'm learning from you, you're learning from me. That's starting in January. You can find that on my website where I have my 1% improvement newsletter that comes out every week. So that's that, or come out to LA, and there's a place called Air One that's the best food ever. You got to come out here, man. You can find me there.
Nice. I appreciate that. And last question I ask everybody is the same. I'm going to ask you is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yeah, to go off what you stand by is don't quit. That's literally what my life has been. It's what it will continue to be, is don't quit, understanding that everything you do is an opportunity for something to come. If you don't know when that opportunity is coming, you don't know the type of box that it's coming in, but it is going to come. God has something great for you. And the only way you don't get there is if you give up. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success, like you said. For my uncle, head coach of the Toronto Raptors, winning the NBA championship, it took him 27 years to become an overnight success. For one of my best friends, Jeremy Lin, who spent years and years and years on the court, had 13 things have to happen the day of the game where he took over Lynn Sandy. 13 things for him to just get on the court, but he prepared for that opportunity. So know your opportunity will come if you prepare for it daily. If you set up these habits, these 1% steps day after day after day, understanding that that road to success is never going to go straight. It's going to go up and down and up and down. But if you stay on that course and you understand that it's coming, you have a gift inside of you, do not hold that gift back yourself. You will have so many breakthroughs waiting to happen in your life.
I love it. David, I truly, truly appreciate it. Listeners, definitely follow David. He puts out some really good stuff. And if you are looking for something to read, grab a copy of his book. And remember, it's not the 28th day, but it's actually the 29th day. I appreciate it, my man, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
You're the best. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you for listening to episode number 317. Whenever I get the chance to chat about morning routines, books, habits, and not quitting, I'm a happy man. As we wrap up today's episode, and with the year 2021 not too far away, I'm going to challenge each of our listeners to examine both their morning and evening routines. Take a look at areas where you can make improvements or little tweaks. So many of our incredible guests have shared both their insights as well as their tips when it comes to morning and evening routines. And one thing I'm absolutely certain of is that it's not about having a perfect morning and evening routine every single day. Instead, the importance is being consistent. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.